Well, folks, peoples, podcast listeners, podcast watchers, and everything in between. My co-host is jacked. She's jacked up on caffeine.
Yeah.
She's starting fully loaded.
Mouth running at a million miles an hour, but I'm so excited. I'm excited to be potted today and have had more than my fill of caffeine to prepare. So,
I was right. I wrote a short film based on an urban legend because I was reading online a report about if you drink 12 pots of caffeine, you can see ghosts. But I just had a second thought about your talking about energy drinks. I was like, I wonder if you could drink so many energy drinks you can catch up to yourself. Just break the time-space continuum. And you're sitting there as Jordan, and then another Jordan appears because you've just had so many energy drinks.
Yeah.
It's like you've caught yourself after drinking them.
I have
How crazy
two
would that be? Post energy drink and during energy drink, and there's two of you existing in the same space and time.
Yeah,
That'd be funny if they had to add it to the warning
travel.
label, because the warning label is always like, oh, it's caffeinated. Oh, don't take if you're breastfeeding or pregnant right now. The second one's like, you may encounter quantum version of yourself. You know what I mean? Like, this will break the time-space continuum.
Yeah, my brain immediately goes to the Futurama episode where they get a relief fund. Everybody does, and Fry decides to spend his all on cups of caffeine, and he essentially goes superpower fast where time almost stands still, and he eventually sleeps the day. But I do like the whole ghost thing. It's like maybe you're trying to create a caffeine-induced seance so you can see and speak to ghosts, I think that would be awesome.
Well, in my story, and it's copyrighted, folks, so I guess somebody can make it before I do, but the guy, he's trying to boost his social media accounts, so he's like, oh, I'm going to do this experiment. He starts to have his friend tape it, and then, of course, naturally, a ghost shows up. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But there's a huge twist, and I think I'll leave the twist for myself, because although I enjoy spoiling other people's movies, I don't want to spoil my own, because I need that money. I need that filmmaking money, y'all. I want to make these movies. What else is going on? Oh, you mentioned ghosts. There's another kind of, we like the ghost energy, and there's a new one. And the reason we're talking about this is because Jordan brought it up to me before I hit record. So I just wanted to take a minute to talk about it. What's the flavor that's out there?
Yeah, the new flavor is sour pink lemonade, and it tastes like the pink and yellow, trolley night crawlers, the sour gummy worms. Those are my favorite all-time, one of my favorite all-time candies. So specifically the pink and yellow. So love those. So good.
Crack open a cold box of wine or pour something cold on ice because it's the Binge-Watchers podcast.
Whoa. It's another new year. A bunch of podcasts going out. As always, I'm Johnny Spoiler. I like to spoil movies, mostly the ones I love. On this podcast is what we do here. Joined as always by Jordan Savage, the Savage Scream Queen herself. She likes energy drinks. She's got some kind of weird plant problem that we're going to address right away.
Yeah.
And she loves horror movies. And in fact, her plant problem is horror movie adjacent. So let's crack this open, because I was like, oh, I want to hear about how the new year is starting. And then I get a text in the middle of the night. She's like, I got a plant problem. And then she sends me a list of plant-related horror movies. And I'm like, wait a minute, back up. You got a problem with your pipes, your plants? I don't know if it was at first you think about dating life metaphors, oh, date night didn't go so well. There's something wrong with the pipes, and then she's like, she told me a story. I'll have her tell you, and then I'll just tell you it's Arizona, baby. Go ahead. Yeah. What's the deal with the plants?
Well, it was a really shitty situation, literally. We had some plumbing issues, and it was pretty bad. So, the main
that detail I didn't know. I didn't know it was fecal matter related. I didn't know it backed up toilets as well.
Literally,
what a way to start the new year.
Up through through the showers. Okay, my dad asked, did it stay in the pan? or did it go out onto the floor? Literally follows up with shit runs downhill.
That's that
So,
boomer
yeah,
humor for you.
yeah,
Boomer humor.
literally. So we obviously had someone come out to do, Roto-Rooter, pleasant, wonderful, plumber guy. Really appreciate him. But he had literally showed me that there is a
So it wasn't you and
ball.
your boyfriend just laying huge,
No,
sleeping huge dinosaurs or whatever.
literally. So he literally pulled like a ball of roots, a root ball out from the pipes. That was what was pulled
Plant
out by the
roots?
rotor. Yes, plant roots. And he said that essentially roots in the ground try to follow the vibrations of the water, right? Because they want water and they go towards the pipes and essentially they like break into the pipes and
Yeah,
just
see,
like clog the main line.
a few weeks ago, Jordan's like, "Oh, I've escaped that nasty winter weather hitting Denver,
Yeah, just
Colorado
a
area." And
literal shit
she's like,
storm.
"John, do you have a blizzard out there in Boston right now? How cold are you? How's it going? I'm just sunny and great here in Arizona."
I deserve
And
it.
the plants are eating their way through her pipes. Welcome to Arizona, Jordan.
Yeah. So, like we said, it is scary movie adjacent, right? So I was like, what are killer plant movies
Yeah, because
that
who
we
would have
could
thought
watch?
that a plant would creep up in your toilet and try to get you?
Right? When plants attack. And so
Instead of
I had
sharks, you got that inherent fear of watching Jaws coming at you in your shower. Now you're like, I got to worry about
plants from
brown
hell.
plants, green plants. Yeah, like
Yeah. So I have a fantastic list here. There's about 15 movies that they are ranking for killer plants. Some of my favorites or that make the list, I would say is, I guess I could just even list all of them if that sounds good.
no, way too long. What
Okay,
what are
it's
the what are
15.
like three standouts of
There
plant killer
is
movies on the list you found?
what most people would probably relate to is Poltergeist 1982. You have that spooky tree, or perhaps, the tree is like being possessed and trying to come through a window. So that's really
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say,
terrifying.
I think the tree crashes through a window,
Yes.
but it's
Yep.
it's clearly motivated, like the tree is possessed or something. Like obviously it's
Right.
unnatural. But I don't think
Abilities.
that's the most disturbing thing in that movie. I'm not trying to get totally
Of
sidetracked.
course. But we're not talking about
Let's
that,
talk
are
about the
we?
braces scene or swimming with actual dead people. No, okay, all right.
I would say pretty much everybody's familiar with the incredible musical Little Shop of Horrors, 1986.
Feed me, Seymour, feed me.
Right. And then I will leave you with, and I don't know if we watched this for the pod or if this was just a personal watch that I had peeped, The Evil Dead 2013. Right. They're literally in the middle of nowhere and she is essentially trying to recover or detox and she runs into the forest and essentially, this terrifying, thing comes in literally the tree, like kind of gets inside her. Right. So super scary, great scene.
Which I wasn't
very
sure.
terrifying.
I wasn't sure if the remake was going to go there because the original, that's like what the original is notoriously known for. Is like the main character's sister is trying to flee from the demonic energy into the woods, and then it's just like, you're just going to be.
We're going to stop you right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just no consent from a tree,
Yeah, they did include the 1981 version as well on this list. So, lots of spooky plants, when plants attack out there. So people be careful.
Well,
about
and then even
spikes.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers is probably somewhere on that list too, because people grow in pods, so they're technically made out of plants or whatever.
It's actually number one.
Hot damn! There you go.
Yeah, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. So,
but we're not here to talk about energy drinks, pots and plants, or whatever I was teasing Jordan with a few minutes ago. Let's see what else is going on. We're going to talk about actually a movie with vampires versus the mafia. Yeah, and it's not some cheesy sci-fi channel movie or Asylum Entertainment movie where it's like literally called Vampire versus Mafia. I'm sure that's out there. I'm sure there is a movie called Vampire versus the Mob. Right. It's just some of the plot devices in this movie. Now we're here to talk about Innocent Blood. First, let's go to some home video headlines. What's new in TV and movies? The original writer of Jurassic Park and Jurassic Park Lost World, which are the first two Jurassic Park movies, is coming back to redeem save or salvage the Jurassic World series. I guess I don't even know what number they're up to, 7 or 8 or 9. I don't know how many, because I've done 3 with Chris Pratt, and then 3 other ones or 2 other ones. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, so
6.
I guess
so this would be number 7, I think.
Number 7, yeah. So this is like, it's still called Jurassic World, but they're like, hey, let's bust out that screenwriter that made some really killer dinosaur movies with us. Anyway, so if you're hoping for a new Jurassic Park, you're gonna get one, and then maybe it'll do better than the last one. Who knows? I love this story. I came across the fact that they're gonna bring back Anaconda in a new sequel with the killer snakes, but they're doing kind of an interesting thing. Supposedly, what they're gonna do is it's going to be about a film crew trying to make a sequel to Anaconda. And then, of course, they're going to encounter the Anacondas. I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. Let's do it. One of those meta type horror movies. And not meta Facebook. What meta actually meant, where I actually don't even know what meta means. What the hell does it mean? It's like what you're referencing is also happening to you while you're watching it, I guess in this case. Because it's like a movie within a movie. I don't know. Anyway. Here's something cool. Anthony Ketus, who's like the lead singer of one of my favorite Red Hot Chili Peppers. I was like, don't let me forget one of the names of my favorite bands, and one thing that reminds me I'm a California kid on some level. His memoir Scar Tissue is getting made into a movie. I mean, yeah, I'm down for it.
I love memoirs, so I love that. It sounds awesome.
Now, did you ever see this Danny Phantom cartoon on Nickelodeon?
I was obsessed.
So this is kind of like Ghostbusters if the Ghostbuster could leave their form, like could transfer into a ghost themselves and fight the other ghosts. It'd be like if you could leave your body and fight ghosts. That's like what Danny Phantom's all about. Whether you not really like the cartoon, it's kind of a cool movie plot. Jump out of your body, fight ghosts. So, but it's filled with Ghostbuster references. Absolutely. You know what I mean? I would imagine that Danny Phantom is partially inspired by the OG Ghostbusters. So, are you here for it, Jordan?
Duh, you know I'm here for it.
All right. There's a rumor that Steven Spielberg's next movie might be a horror movie, Rosemary Baby type plot. I was reading about it, and I'm like, okay, well, I mean, Rosemary Baby is like Apocalypse Baby, so religious horror, I don't know. I mean, who knows? I mean, Spielberg's a Jewish filmmaker, so I don't know if he would do a Christianity-themed horror movie or a religious horror movie. I guess we'll find out. I mean, I can't think of anything else that would relate to Rosemary's Baby, except for maybe the cult aspect. Maybe he's just making a movie about a cult. Who knows? That's rumor mill, folks. It's just being reported by all the internet rags, but who the hell knows if it's actually what's true and what's not true. Tonight's movie, Innocent Blood. Marie is a vampire who only feeds on criminals, but one of the criminals survives and transforms into a bloodthirsty final boss. Now, to stop this mob of blood drinkers from destroying the city, Marie is going to team up with a very unlucky undercover cop who has a desire to bring down the vampire-mafia. I should mention that Marie is Nikita from the original La Femme Nikita. That was probably Jordan's top most savage stat, and I yanked it right out from under her.
No, believe it or not, it wasn't.
Right.
But we know and love her from Nikita. So,
yeah.
I'm always for a woman BA character, and she is in that.
Badass female hero types.
Love it. It's the best. And so she does not disappoint here in Innocent Blood. Got a few pretty fun little facts for you today for Savage Stats. I thought they had kind of a slogan for this movie too that seemed pretty enticing back in the day. Back
What's
during
the tagline?
90s movies when they would be from the director or from the legendary director that brought you National Lampoon's Animal House, The Blues Brothers, An American Werewolf in London, Trading Places, and Coming to America brings you the dark comedy horror film From the Undead. So I thought that was pretty fascinating.
That sounds like they're really selling hard his other hits because they're like,
guys, sometimes you got to get a hook.
Guys, I don't know. The marketing department's like, guys, I don't know if this movie's going to work. We should maybe mention the 5 other hits this dude has because this one.
that would get me hooked for sure.
Yeah.
I do think that it didn't do super well. But anyways, the distributors did retitle this film. It was then retitled to A French Vampire in America, and that was for international release. They did that, of course, without informing the director, John Landis, which angered him greatly, and it caused a lot of confusion when the film was promoted outside
That is
the
confusing.
US.
Like,
Yeah.
A French Vampire in America makes me think that it's absolutely a French film made by a stuck-up French director or something who's going to win Cannes. You know what I mean? It doesn't sound Americana at all.
Well, and I'm sure that led to a little bit of the confusion and why it possibly didn't land, very well. What I found interesting is that John Landis said preview audiences had troubles understanding Anne's heavy French accent, but he refused to dub her, which I'm really glad that he did not. I think it's very cute, but that's a personal opinion. So,
well, because she could be a French vampire, so the accent makes sense. I mean, she's been alive a long time, and right now, I mean, in current time, vampires from New Orleans or French vampires are pretty hot right now in movies. So,
I mean, I think back to, one of my personal favorites, which is, Interview with the Vampire, and they have accents from where they came from. So that makes sense to me, that she would come over from France and she would be feeding off of mobsters here in America. But I think that just leads a little bit to our backstory. I thought it was pretty fun that during the film, they're often playing other movies or pieces of television in the background. So Phantom of the Rue Morgue 1954 is playing on the television during the morgue scene, specifically when Michelli is first brought in. And then again, when he essentially makes his really frenzied exit out of the morgue. Then there's also like Godzilla, I'm pretty sure is referenced in the beginning. I think I caught that, but there's also Alfred Hitchcock's cameo in Strangers on a Train, 1951. And then Jacko, one of the Goonies, is watching Sir Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing's dramatic final.
You mean one of the Goombas?
You got it.
Or made men, as they like to say.
Yeah, and that is in The Horror of Dracula 1958. So they do that throughout the movie. I think that's kind of fun little Easter eggs. But I feel like this is a Johnny spoiler, and this is my last stat. Because you talk about tropes all the time, especially when we're talking about things like vampires or werewolves. This defies two common vampire tropes in this movie. That's one of them is that vampires having no reflection or can't see the reflection in mirrors. She obviously can see her reflection in mirrors in this one. And then vampires having to feed as a human on vampire blood in order to turn into a vampire.
She has feeder's guilt. She has vampire guilt.
She does.
So I mean, it's a moral quandary. So that's why they broke that trope. But I also wrote down. I mean, this affects my rating mostly. So I'll bring it up again. But I wrote down also what kills the vampires ?
Yeah, right.
With the exception of two that we know. Like Sunlight is the major killer because it kills the lawyer played by Don Rickles. So again, what a cameo! There's a ton of cameos in this movies. I'll get to that in favorite bit. Many cameos.
Yeah.
But dang. And then obviously, spoiler alert, do they get rid of the mob boss? Hell yeah, they do. How does it happen? He's too ambitious. His own bravado kills him. He's like, he gets smashed between a car and a bus, and then the cop has the opportunity while he's distracted during one of his speeches to throw the damn lighter, to ignite him into flames.
Mm-hmm.
But this is like one of the coolest parts is that he's giving a speech, a final moment of, I don't know, just whatever. Like he doesn't think he can't, he thinks he's so great he can't die. Like he's that much of a legend or vampire or whatever, Dracula. He thinks he has Dracula status and he's like on fire. But they had the stuntman talking as the character while on fire for, I don't know how many seconds they held the shot for, but obviously what they did is they probably had the actor do like a dialogue recording and then played it over, the stuntman. But he's like on fire. As he's decomposing from the flames or getting burnt to a crisp, he's still giving his defiant speech. And it's a pretty cool moment, man. Anyway, so we're at favorite bits. Oh my gosh, we're there.
So many. Yeah. I thought some of the one-liners were hilarious. I don't know. I think that they like nailed the mob boss like personality. Obviously, he does a fantastic job being Michelli. One of the
See, what I'm
ones.
tracking in this episode is how many times you offend the mob. So if you get
Sorry,
like
they're
a
coming
dead
for
horse
me.
on your porch, we'll know why. So
Um,
far, it's 2.
yeah. Well,
Don't disrespect the
fine.
family, Jordan.
I love that he says, like, I can hear an angel fart because he's like waking up from his nap. Michelli's like essentially goes into hiding just because of the sunlight, right? And he finds this like butcher that he obviously
Yeah,
does
he's like
business with.
stumbling around in the dark trying to figure out, I'm a vampire. What does that mean? What are the rules? You know?
Right. And he notices that like sunlight obviously hurts him. And so he goes to this butcher. He like goes into the freezer because it's airtight, it's light tight, right? Falls asleep on like a rump roast. And then when he wakes up, he feels like $100 million, right? And
That's where the
so
Sam Raimi cameo is. He's playing Meat Boy there at the meat packing plant.
yep, for
Which is
sure.
clearly the fronts. I mean, they own all these businesses, right? One can
Yes.
assume. Yeah.
Yeah. And so his, men underneath him come in and they're essentially talking about how they could try to like overthrow him, not necessarily in a sense, but pass the baton off to somebody else.
Yeah, but then he's like, hey, no, boys, we're gonna go immortal and we're gonna knock out the other families.
Yeah, hasn't quite planned that out yet, but I just thought it was so funny. He goes like, I can hear an angel fart, essentially saying that he heard them talking about how they're gonna try to replace him, and he's like, not gonna happen. I mean, girls, ladies, put your tween books down. No vampires with sparkly skin. The sex scene in this one was saucy. So if you're looking for something that's a little bit more, your speed, now that we have aged
and I had
we're a
written
little bit
down
older,
that the
check
movie
it
starts
out.
to fall. The movie starts to fall apart after the sex scene. It built the whole movie is building to the sex scene, and then after that, I think. Anyway.
The sex scene though, chef kiss, okay? Steamy, perfect. Loved it. I don't know. It had all the things that I loved. It's like got neon lights, there's stripper clubs. You like have these excellent Italian, men in it. You have a wonderful vampire lady.
She wasn't really the actress wasn't attached at first. And like there was another director before Landis. But John Landis was supposed to make a vampire movie about Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Like the people who run the city were going to be vampires in a movie called Red Sleep or something. But then Landis gets this project. If they hadn't brought in Nikita, I don't think the sex scene would have hit the way you're describing it.
Agreed.
'Cause, sexy acting, that's definitely an art form.
Yes.
Acrobatic, stylistic choices.
They both do a fantastic job. Like it just the whole like leading up to it, the foreplay in it, like it just was honestly really good. It was tasteful. Nothing, too wild. But I think I can agree and you can agree. The best part is Manny, the lawyer's death in the hospital when he just gets lit up in flames and light. I don't know if you were going to bring that
the
up.
Sunburst, and then he's like melting, and the attendees don't know what to do. Lena Quigley, who's a horror movie actress, she's the nurse that runs in Screaming or whatever. So, like again, Jordan said it's jam packed with freaking cameos. Should I go ahead and mention the other killer cameos in this or what?
Go ahead. I had a feeling you had those locked and loaded.
I got them. I've been ready in my handy dandy movie notebook. Tom Savini, who's both a director and an actor, but also a special effects master. He plays the journalist, the photographer that's like sneaking around as a paparazzi taking mob photos. And then Dario Argento is actually the EMT when they roll the Don Rickles. She was just talking about the character, the lawyer that bursts into flames in the hospital. When he's transforming, they think he's just a victim, so they put him inside an ambulance, and it's actually the Italian giallo horror filmmaker Dario Argento that's like, you'll be okay, you're all right, And then we mentioned Sam Raimi already, and Angela Bassett, she's like in there as police lieutenant. Mm-hmm. To be fair, she doesn't have anything to do in this movie, but I was like, I didn't remember Angela Bassett was in this movie. Anyway, speaking of the dialogue that you said was a favorite bit, it's also one of my favorite bits. I wrote down some of the lines.
Yes.
Time to treat myself. What about Italian? And she's referencing eating one of the Italian guys.
Right.
And then later on, she also comments, So she has kind of an ego, but it's kind of also one of the funny elements of the movie. She's like, this is the first time my meal has made it on the front page. So it's not necessarily that she's hiding her lifestyle. She does feel guilty about being a vampire, but she's not necessarily hiding. But she obviously makes a mistake only because, like, maybe it was garlic. I don't know. He was trying to serve her actual food, and it kind of like lowered her guard,
Right.
or screwed with her senses, and then she accidentally turns him into a vampire and spends the rest of the movie trying to clean up her mess or whatever, while being distracted by romance. Jordan, when
Duh.
she's attracted to the cop.
Well, and that's like kind of her two rules is like, first, she doesn't play with food, aka she doesn't
Yeah.
mix sex and feeding, right? And then two is always finish your meal or always finish your food. And right, the garlic kind of does maybe even like take away a little bit of her strength or
Kind of
whatever.
like they're picking and choosing which vampire rules to use, but they're mostly kind of making a parody or doing away with the rules, because like at one point she's flying around. It's implied that she's like in a bat mode, even though we never see bats in the whole movie, and this only happens in one scene where she's like flying through the church. And I'm like, wait a minute, she lives in a church without bursting into flames? You know what I mean? Like,
totally.
Usually that's a no-no for vampires. One cool element though is for some reason their eyes change when their mood changes.
Like
the eyes keep changing, but it's hard to track what mood is for what emotion.
Right.
Like red is like death or murder, obviously, but then I thought green was for good stuff. Like, oh, green is go, red is stop. No, like, because then the bad vampires were also turning green in their eyes. Then some had white eyes. There's also the blue eyes.
Right. And like in her like little passion moment, she's kind of changing between the three. So I like thought the same. I was like, oh, maybe green and blue, she's like calm or she's like feeling passionate, but then she like turns into red and then orange. And so
it's a little inconsistent in the movie. It's hard to figure out how it works, but it's a cool element. But then back to like breaking the rules is like at one point you think a broken baseball bat is going to be the first stake that they use in the movie to kill the vampires. No. I mean, like, so here's where I said the movie starts to fall apart after the sex scene. It's kind of like dealing with the vampires is why it's not consistent or clear on how you get rid of them, because like she breaks Goomba's neck. She breaks necks. He shoots people in the face or the head area, and that seems to do it for the low-level vampires. But then again, the other vampires are like, oh, let me just pull the bullets out, or let me just pull out all these wounds all over me, no big deal. So I'm just like,
and she gets shot multiple times and doesn't die, right? Because it's like below the neck. So it's like,
except for towards the end where she's considering suicide by sunlight, she's holding a wound that doesn't seem to be healing on her stomach. So again, like, at no point did they get magic bullets or put silver bullets or something into his little hand cannon there. Also, they had like an exaggerated move where he blasts a vampire through a doorway on a stairwell because the vampire gets really close, and to one of his former partners from the task force.
Right.
But that little gun, which is like maybe a Beretta, maybe a 90mm, like a detective gun you see in all these movies, I don't think it has the force power to launch somebody through a doorway,
Totally.
Like, so again, like maybe, just an exaggerated stunt moment, whatever, to entertain people. But, yeah, I don't know. I guess we can rate the movie, but of course, like, I'm super conflicted on this rating. So
I've known the feeling, but not for me for this one. It was a binge now for me. It at least from
oh crap, you forgot to pitch how we rate the movies.
Okay.
By the way.
So we've got 3 ratings here, you guys. We've got binge now, which is put it to the top of your list. Don't
watch it now,
walk,
immediately.
run to the TV and put it on. Later, binge later is like definitely put it on the list, but you'll get around to it soon. Eventually, binge never is you will not get this time back. Don't watch it. We will save you the heartache and the time. But I would say binge now for me. It's got all the things that I loved it. I thought it was entertaining. I thought it had the romance in there. I thought that the characters fit perfectly into their roles. It was fun for me to watch for sure. So neon lights, all the things that I love. So what about you, John? What do you rate it?
I think the guy playing the cop, his name is Anthony LaPaglia. And so like this movie is what made me like him as an actor. So I thought going into this tonight, like I own the DVD. I took the time to seek it out on DVD and buy a copy of it. But but I thought I was aiming for a binge now, but it ended up going into a binge later because the inconsistency with dealing with the vampires actually bothers me now. Maybe I'm a little jaded. Maybe I'm a little spoiled vampire movie watcher. I don't know, but maybe because it didn't bother me before, but it bothers me now.
Yeah.
I probably watched this thing like 5 times on TV and a handful of times on DVD, but it registered this time, I guess, for the sake of this exercise that we're doing. You know what I mean? Like, to get a little critical of it. It's also a who's who of like Italian American actors at the time. Chaz Palminteri is the first victim. Like, at the beginning, they have this scenario they set up where the undercover cop is infiltrating the mob, but then the first victim is played by like probably the most well-known of the Italian American actors in the movie. Goes on to have like a major career. They got a great song by Jackie Wilson playing, though. I will say that it's called Night, and it's playing at the beginning of the movie. They also have, obviously, to really give you that Italian mafia drama tone, they got a couple songs with Frank Sinatra playing. So, I mean, they set it up. Soundtrack. They got the horror movie references. So maybe that does it a disservice. Like that it even though I have said on previous episodes, I love when a movie knows it's a movie and tells you it's a movie. But in this case, I think maybe it weakens the story a little bit. But a lot of reviews, if you look it up online, and also Roger and Ebert or Siskel and Ebert or whatever, because was it Roper? It's a Roper and Ebert now, but it used to be Siskel and Ebert. It was probably Siskel and Ebert when the movie came out. They had talked about inconsistencies. Probably some of the same ones that we found. Anyway, so yeah, it lands a binge later for me these days.
I think that's fair.
But I never know what's going to happen when I share these magical movies with Jordan. So I'm pretty happy with her rating, and it's just a fun experience all around. So no drama, no conflict, folks. Really. I mean, we're not going to fight about whether we like the movie or not.
Not today.
Let's see. Well, what else? Okay, if you could recommend a movie or TV show that's not the movie of the week, do you have one?
I don't think so. I really don't. I mean, I watched this. I know I watched things, but they weren't related to like good movies or, Yeah.
Well, I think I may have brought it up last week or the week before. I've been watching Spin City, which is a 90s sitcom with Michael J. Fox. It's one of the last things he did recently. But if you loved Dwight from The Office, you'll definitely love Stewart, played by Alan Ruck, who's kind of like a very Dwight-esque character, but pre-Office. You know what I mean? This is like a workplace comedy. It's basically like, it's centered around the deputy mayor, but he has like a little collective team, like staff writers and assistants and like a press secretary, like people that help run the mayor's office, right? It's got Connie Britton, Richard Kind, Carla Gugino's in the first season. I wish he stayed around for the rest of it. Barry Bostwick plays the mayor. It starts to fall apart in season 3, and in season 4, I'm totally tuned out. Like, I don't like Heather Locklear in this. I don't like Charlie Sheen in this, who takes over for Michael J. Fox. There's a great actress whose name is Jennifer Esposito, and she suddenly dips out like right when season 3 is beginning or the end of season 2. I'm like, where did she go? Which is really funny. Like, I'm consuming like an older TV show that I didn't really watch in its continuity and was on. Obviously, when it came out, I was younger. I was like a kid. Like, why would I really pay attention? I did watch some of it back in the day because of Michael J. Fox, but I really didn't look at the adult content or anything, like the relationships and like whatever the sitcom is centered around. But this actress Jennifer Esposito like disappears. Have you seen The Boys on Amazon with the superhero drama or whatever? I was gonna say you might know who she is because she plays like a senator in there that helps him out in the first couple seasons. But there's a rumor. I had to look on like deep internet message boards. I literally was like, why did Jennifer Esposito leave Spin City? And it's like, oh, there's a rumor that Spike Lee told her if she wanted to be taken seriously, she couldn't be in a sitcom. And she actually ends up in his movie Summer of Sam, about the Summer of Sam killer.
Interesting.
I don't know if he actually said that to her. And I don't want to, it's not gospel truth for my mouth. I'm just saying like, it's the only thing I could find as to pose a reason why. You know,
but it's kind of fun to like find those rumors.
So here's the tragedy of our show or whatever, because we come up with these questions, but it's hard to reach out sometimes to some of the people involved to like find these answers. Like if you could go and ask somebody like, hey, why is the eyeballs inconsistent in this movie? You know what I mean? Like, ask the makeup
Totally.
department. You know what I mean? Like, and so the same thing. It's like, oh, I'll just have to one day, if we're ever at a party, ask Jennifer Esposito, like, hey, Miss Esposito, I know this is like 20 years ago, but they'll be like, what a freaking lunatic. You know what I mean? It's like, could you imagine that? Like, you're at a casual party and you're just like, you finally get to talk to somebody and you're not going over anything relevant. You're just like, yeah, so you were in this sitcom in the 90s, and like, I just always thought, like, why weren't you in season 3? Anyway, but that's what the conventions are. Those are cracking money, man. That's exactly the awkward moments where there's a panel of actors, you know what I mean? And somebody
So
brings up
funny.
a question like that, right? That's what the conventions are for.
Yeah. So if you're listening, Miss Jennifer, please drop us a comment. Tell us.
Also, why is John watching old sitcoms, binge watching all these sitcoms? I'll tell you why. I had a recent episode of depression that was lasting a really long time and locked into a bipolar episode. I've been watching all these sitcoms on repeat for hours at a time to download and decompress. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's the only excuse I could have for
Sometimes you need a palate cleanser. Yeah. Sometimes you need a palate cleanser. So,
I mean,
funny.
behind the scenes, I already told Jordan, I take all these meetings about marketing. We talk to sponsors and affiliates about like sponsoring the show, and it's mind numbing. Sometimes, I mean, it can be very rewarding. Obviously, we love our sponsors, but sometimes it's very business. And, sometimes Johnny is like, I gotta like reset. Yeah. And then I'm crushing episodes of freaking sitcoms, like, 15 episodes at a time.
So funny.
That's also, I guess it's also my reaction when I'm dealing with regular life pressure, like, family stuff or like job stuff or like anything that's going on. I mean, if I had plants coming up through my pipes, I might watch one of those plant related horror movies,
Let me tell you, I was affected. I was not a happy camper. So
it's just a weird event.
Yeah.
Like, no,
well, and that's what, I've got long black hair. So I was like, these mother effers are going to like accuse me of like sticking stuff down the drain I'm not supposed to. And I'm not going to let them. And then, of course, the guy's like, do you want to see it? And I was like, and he's like, it's a root ball. And I was like, oh, okay. Weird. Who the frick thought that roots could just infiltrate your pipes? But now we know. Okay. So,
I mean,
wild.
Good for the roots, bad for the humans trying to live there, I guess.
Yeah. Literally.
What else is going on? Hey, that's it, man. So if you enjoy vampires and mafias and vampires fighting mafias and sexy French actresses and you love meatball storylines or you love Italian actors.
There's a lot of really good food in the beginning of the movie.
You're like, I've seen the other. Yeah. You're like, I've seen some of these other John Landis movies that Jordan mentioned. Like, what else is next? You end up with Innocent Blood. Should I have mentioned that there's another Innocent Blood soap opera type thing or something completely unrelated? I'll have to specifically look up French Vampire in America Innocent Blood.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. You never want to watch the wrong movie, let me tell you. We can save ourselves from doing that. Been this close a couple times, so watch the right one. That's it.
Just make sure you watch the right movie. That'd be funny. It's a rare occasion. Oh, I forgot to mention that we were gonna watch this movie called The Vanishing, but this movie has vanished. It's a remake.
Vanished.
It's actually easier to find the one from the 80s, which is a foreign film, than it is to find the 90s or so remake with Jeff Bridges and Sandra Bullock and Kiefer Sutherland. That version is harder to find. But then some jerk recut the movie, re-edited the movie, and then posted that version on the Internet Movie Archives. And people were like, do you have the original as well? I'm like, but also kind of a weird, that's the movie that you choose to re-edit.
Right. Can we get the rest of the movie? Like,
or, I mean, that's a very specific fandom. Like, is he a Kiefer Sutherland fan? Is he a Jeff Bridges fan? Is he specifically a fan of the movie The Vanishing, and he loves it so much that he just wishes the pace was different and then spent hours upon hours to recut the damn movie.
Yeah, who does that? Who spends their time doing that? I'm curious, you know?
Wow. Actually, Topher Grace, Topher Grace from the
Sure.
70s show and Win
served
a
him
Date with
once.
Todd Hamilton. And there's this 80s movie that I like too. What is that one called? Crap. I can't remember. But he's like re-edited some of the Star Wars movies to make them more tight with their plots and stuff. Like
Interesting.
super cuts, right?
Okay, if you're trying to bust through like a big, saga like that, then maybe, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Still a stretch, though. Still a stretch.